welcome to episode 34 of Random Encounter, the Dark Souls podcast. I'm your host, Robert Simon, Pale Robbie on the boards, back from his trip to Lordran, tired as all hell, but very happy that I played this game. Joining me today, we have fellow adventurer, and his review will hopefully be up on the site pretty soon.
Kyle E. Miller.
Kyle and I agree on a game, everybody. This is an important historic moment right now.
Dark Souls has brought us together.
That's scary. We have another fellow adventurer who is in the midst of kind of a hiatus, but he's going to get back into it.
I am the Bat.
You're not even playing Batman yet.
I know I'm not, but I'm Steven and I'm tailless on the boards.
Oh, boy. And we have the man who just braved Sen's Fortress.
And died in the process. This is Zach, super flat on the boards.
Everybody sounds so exhausted.
But that's the thing. Like, we're going to talk about Dark Souls right now. This is kind of our Dark Souls big podcast, and I think exhausted definitely says it. I mean, I played this game for about 11 days. It took me like 11 or 12 days to beat it, and I have never been this exhausted, this emotional playing a game. Like, I finished this game, and it was the first ray of sunlight in my life for almost 2 weeks. This game took my life over. Every thought I had during the day was about Dark Souls and what I needed to do. And now, Kyle, you also finished the game. Did you feel that same level of oppression and immersion?
Absolutely. I couldn't think about anything else, and it was intense.
It's almost painful in a way. I mean, this is not a game. I said it in my review that this is not a game for everyone, and this isn't a game about who's hardcore, who's tough, who's a badass when it comes to video games. This is a very much a game of, do you want a game that's going to challenge you, that's going to take over your life, that's going to ask you to put forth almost 100% effort? If you don't want to do any of those things, do not play this game. Go play Skyrim. And that's not a knock on Skyrim. That's not
or
saying
on Dark Souls.
Or a knock on Dark Souls. It's not. It's just Dark Souls is very much – this is the first game since Silent Hill 2 that I was honestly hesitant to put into my video game console because I knew what it was going to do to me emotionally. I knew that this was going to be oppressive. You have this feeling that you are the one ray of light in this world of just darkness and death.
Prior to being stabbed in the back.
Yes, prior to being stabbed in the back. And I think that's...
Twice.
Yes. It really shows something special about this game, and it's not a game for everyone. Now, just giving a quick overview, this is the quote spiritual successor to Demon's Souls. They couldn't use Demon's Souls 2 because they don't own the license. So this is From Software's dark fantasy game. You start out as a zombie. So any game that does that, pretty awesome. And I'll warn everyone right now, we're not going to go too spoilerific. We're going to try to keep it vague. We're not going to talk about specific parts. We'll maybe just talk about, generalities of the game. But you start out the game, you're in an asylum. So just the first 5 minutes of the game, you're in an asylum that they house the undead in, and you're tasked with escaping. And, you get out, you're kind of walking around in your loincloth, and you look kind of dingy and whatnot. And then you walk into a room, and a giant demon drops in. So
he punches you in the face, and you die.
Well, unless you're like me and you knew that you're supposed to run from it, and then you run away. And so the game goes about, reminding you what the Demon's Souls style combat is. You equip a shield. It's very much, not a game about combos. It's about keeping your shield up, God damn it, and making sure that you don't drop your defenses. Waiting for
Pop
an
in
opening
to catch a hit, here and there.
Yep. Waiting for an opening. You still control very similar left analog stick to move around, right analog stick to move the camera, L1 for shield, R1 for attack. I know a lot of people really don't like the control scheme. I know John said in his original Demon's Souls review that he wasn't really a fan of the controls. Am I the only one that really likes the control scheme? I mean,
I think it works perfectly. I have zero problems with it.
The nice thing, I like how they kind of unconventionally bind the attack stuff to the triggers, because it allows you to manipulate the camera when you really do need to, or at the very least, if you're not playing with the camera and you're locked on, you can then fiddle with the items and stuff on the face buttons. It works really well.
Yeah, it can be cumbersome at times. Like you might, it takes a little getting used to when it comes to like equipping a bow and arrow and whatnot, but and maybe switching your offhand weapon to like something that you can use to cast magic. So I can see little areas that could use some minor ironing out, but overall, I mean, it allows for very precise movement.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess the one thing that I would say is that they added a couple of things like the kick attack and the leaping attack that you can do by pressing forward and R1 or forward and L1 or R2 on the PS3.
You had the kick attack originally.
Did you?
Yeah, you had the kick attack originally, but not the leaping attack.
But either way, those are like kind of finicky when you're trying to get them to work, and like between like when you're rolling around or if you're just standing still and you press circle to dodge, you could jump backwards off of the edge of a cliff.
Yeah,
which I've done on occasion.
That's definitely one aspect of the game is like you really need this precise movement because they put you in some precarious situations. There's a lot of
walk across this very narrow plank.
Yes, while being shot at with tree trunk arrows or
poison darts,
or just
also someone's invaded your world and is trying to push you off.
There's a lot going on, and it's definitely this feeling that this whole world is out to get you. And so after you get through the opening area, you get to the main junction point of the whole game, which is the Firelink Shrine. And from Firelink Shrine, you can go to 3 different areas. Everyone seems to go to the graveyard first.
I think it's because the graveyard is the easiest one to access. Like you just walk over there, like, oh, okay.
It's the most immediately visible because you can like see where you're going from there, and the other one's just kind of like this ominous staircase up. And
yeah,
I actually didn't even see the graveyard for a while, and I was like, oh, there's something over here.
You were lucky though, because I think
I guess
everybody has said it before. They said it on the A4 Play podcast. They said it on Weekend Confirmed. Everybody has said it that like somebody made the mistake of going down to the skeleton graveyard. I think our fellow editor Liz, I think she went down there too, and she fought her way all the way to the catacombs at the start of the game. And I'm like, you're nuts. You're not supposed to be going there right now.
I believe Derek did as well.
Oh my god. Maybe that's why Derek isn't liking the game right now.
Yeah, we told him to go back.
Yeah, go back. And so you get down there, and it's very much, we're all trained that a skeleton is kind of a mook enemy in most games. They're kind of like lowest of the low, not very difficult. Yeah, these skeletons just F your whole day up. Like they claw you, they just hit so hard. They can riposte your attacks. And even worse, if you keep going down to the catacombs, they regenerate. Which is just like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be going down there. Then maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to go down to the New Londo ruins, and I'm going to go look at this area. And you get down there, and there are ghosts. Ghosts that you can't attack unless you're cursed. And so then they kill you, and you finally figure out, okay, maybe I'm supposed to go up this cliffside into the Undead Burg where the enemies are reasonable level and everything's kind of toned down a little bit. But that's one of the beauties of this game is that when they said that Dark Souls is this huge world that's all interconnected, they meant it. And Steven, you had a perfect assessment of the game, and I'm going to let you do it.
I said it's what Castlevania would have been if it was made in 3D and done correctly.
And he is 100% right. This is a Metroidvania, whatever you want to call it. This is a linked world. It's not an open world. It's not like, Arkham City or Grand Theft Auto. It's very much separated into discrete areas with shortcuts and paths that you'll open up, and everything is interconnected. When you realize that the Blight Town is connected to the Valley of the Drakes, which is connected to the New Londo ruins, which is connected to this, that, and the other thing, there's this real sense that you are in this world. And I think that's one of the best aspects of this game is that even though you don't have a map, which I'm kind of conflicted on because there were moments I wanted a map. But even though you don't have one, you come to know this world inside and out more than any other game I've played.
Yeah, I know my way around every area I've been to perfectly.
Yep, I can find my way when you first get to the depths, which is your obligatory sewer level. But in all fairness, this is probably the best sewer level I've ever played in a video game. When you get down to the depths, you are initially confused and disoriented, and if you're like me, you maybe fell through some pits and you ended up with some really nasty enemies around you. Yeah, but eventually you figure out the whole area and you know exactly where you are. And there was a moment where I had to take out a specific enemy that was making my life a living hell during a boss fight, and maybe I'm the only one that didn't take that enemy out beforehand, and he makes the boss almost impossible. And so I had to find him, and I was like, well, I know he's above me, so I'm just going to keep traveling up. And sure enough, I got to him, and I was able to take him out. So it's like my own personal navigation without having like an iPhone or a GPS or, some other map system. I was able to find that enemy. And that shows me that the level design in this game, for the most part, is rock solid.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably the best level design in an RPG possibly ever.
And it's so rewarding when you find that shortcut to another area.
Oh yeah.
Or when the game,
and you're like, oh, I never have to run through that area again.
Or when the game eventually gives you the ability to warp between certain bonfires to cut down on some of the tedium of travel. There's just this constant sense of reward for exploration. And whenever you explore, you find new enemies, you find new weapons, you find new items. The game is constantly patting you on the back for walking around the environment and finding things. And I have not played a game like that in a very long time. And I think more so than Demon's Souls, this game is a lot friendlier with how there's moments in Demon's Souls where you just, because it's a linear path, you're going to have to fight this really tough enemy, or you're going to have to go through this really nasty part. Those parts are present in Dark Souls, but there's almost always a way around them, or a way to make your life easier.
Except when the frame rate's chugging.
We're going to get to those technical issues. We're going to get there. The other thing... Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, too, that's actually something like a lot of people have been comparing it to Skyrim. And, I mean, if you haven't played it, I could see why you might make that comparison because they're both big, expansive RPGs. But especially after playing it, they are completely different. And that's why I feel like it sucks this season, because you'll go on a message board or you'll go on like an article about Skyrim or Dark Souls, and all the people in the comments are like, oh, I would get Dark Souls if it had better co-op, or I would get Dark Souls, if, it had a fast travel option or something like that. And
yeah, they're not even in the same. I mean, they're as far away on the same spectrum, on the same genre, as you can possibly be.
Yeah, Skyrim is about, go roam around in the world and have some fun. Dark Souls is about you better watch your ass.
Yeah, and I think Skyrim is a simulator of, or at least the other Elder Scrolls games, and most likely Skyrim, are simulators about a fantasy world where you're going around and participating in it and talking to people and learning their problems and going out and solving quests. Meanwhile, Dark Souls is a pain simulator, or better yet, it's a purgatory simulator.
The only problem you're trying to solve in Dark Souls is how to avoid getting toasted every 5 seconds.
Yep. It's purgatory. I mean, the entire nature of the game, because you're going to die a lot. The game tells you to prepare to die. The whole game is about...
Preparez-vous à morte.
The whole game is about death and rebirth, and about dying and learning from your mistakes and coming back. And you have to make peace with that right away. And
But that's one of the most satisfying things about it, is that people, you hear about it in all the reviews too. You die over and over again, but whenever you make progress in that game, it's more satisfying than any other game I've played this year.
I would agree.
When you get past something in Dark Souls, you breathe that sigh of relief, and you pick up the treasure, and you get your huge boatload of souls, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm the man or woman, depending on who you are.
I would definitely agree, and I think that they've ironed out some of the issues from Demon's Souls. One of the huge additions to the game is the bonfire system, where you're going around and you get to rest at a bonfire and level up, and you can reverse the fact that you're undead and become human, and that allows you to summon people into your world. It takes a resource called humanity, which the game doesn't do a very good job of telling you that humanity is something that you'll earn either through helping other people or finding it in the environment. Once you have humanity, you can become human. Once you're human, you can kindle a bonfire to give you more life potions, because you get a restock of potions every time you rest at a bonfire. Like, humanity is huge. it also plays into how your drop rate on items. So if you're going to go out and try to farm items, you want to have as much humanity as possible.
So yeah, see, I didn't have. So if you're human, you get more stuff, but if you have more humanity, you also get a better drop rate.
Right. Exactly.
Even
exactly.
if you're not human.
Even if you're not human, the more humanity that you have, the better your drop rate. But I think in human form, you have the highest. Like, it's a huge bonus. I think. Pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm not. Yeah, but either way, all that humanity that you're holding that's boosting your drop rate, if you die, you lose that. It goes into your bloodstain with your soul. So it's kind of this risk reward. Like, oh, can I actually farm these enemies that are kind of easy to avoid, but if I get hit, I'll get killed in one shot? Or maybe I should just play an easier game.
Well, the bonfire system, I think, cuts down on the biggest pain in the ass part from Demon Souls, where, the fact that it was a straight linear path through the levels, if you died on the boss, you have to go through the whole freaking level all over again.
Absolutely. See, and that's what I think separates the two games, because I never beat Demon Souls. I didn't think Demon Souls was very fun, and I just got frustrated with it and quit. And I think it was because of that repetition and just the loss of progress, the almost constant loss of progress, which the bonfire system basically just erases.
Yeah, I feel like Dark Souls, it's a lot less, like, maybe grindy, you still do a little bit to get souls or to level up or to find something, but there's less tedium in Dark Souls because you're always not very far from getting back to what you need to do.
It's almost as easy as just like looking at the Estus flask, your life recovery system. There's no more kind of worrying about, oh, well, if I'm just going to die in the next 3 seconds, then is it worth eating this like grass or whatever to recover my health? And now, because, like you have a certain amount of Estus flasks, it becomes a strategic, like, well, I need to use this, but I also need to get through the level. But it doesn't matter in the long run because I'll get to another bonfire eventually, and I'll have my flasks back.
Yeah, that's something actually I didn't even expect with the game that I think is one of the best changes. Is the whole you never won't have a healing item. You always have access to healing because every time you die, it resets. You can expand how much healing you have, and so you
make
don't
it stronger.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're screwing yourself by like if you're not sure if you're going to get stabbed around the corner, you don't feel quite as bad about popping that potion down to make sure you're at max health.
Yep,
exactly. And so the bonfire and the Estus flask combined, I think, makes Dark Souls a better game.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it irons out the issues. The game is very friendly. Like, after you go through a particularly hard section, start looking for a bonfire, because it's probably there. The bonfires are placed out pretty nicely. There's maybe only a couple parts in the game where I was like, I could really use one right now, and I'm not anywhere close.
There was one section, actually. I'm currently in Blighttown, and I finished everything other than Blighttown that I can at the moment. I'm going to ring the second bell. And I was in Blighttown, and I haven't found a bonfire there yet.
So there's two bonfires in Blighttown. There's one above on like the upper area, and then there's one on the lower area, right like in the Poison Swamp. And I'll help you find those, Steven, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. See, because what actually happened is I left the sewers. I left them, and I was co-oping with some guy, and we were running around Blighttown. And I guess you can't activate the fire when your partner is in a fight. Mm-hmm. So I found a bonfire, sure enough, but then he died. I'm halfway in Blighttown with like 10,000 souls because, I'm a jackass. And I died, and I got sent all the way back to the depths. And then I went to go back to Blighttown, and then on the way there, I got cursed. So I had to leave the depths and get uncursed. And then I went back, and then I died on the way to Blighttown again and lost my souls again.
Blighttown, I don't want to talk about technical issues right now, but Blighttown, I think, kind of exemplifies one issue that I have with this game. I think it, like we're saying, it does a lot of things better. I really like the new potion implementation. I didn't think I'd like it. I really didn't think I'd like that because, having an almost endless supply of grass was very comforting, but I think that this also heightens the risk-reward system, and
comforting to a lot of college students too.
And also the bonfires, they're placed so well. They're usually right before a boss fight, or at least a pretty easy section before you get to a boss fight. They're placed very well for the most part. The only real issue that I had with this game, and it's going to be weird to talk about this because, you're playing a game, you're playing Dark Souls, it's going to be hard. I do feel like there are some areas in the game where it goes from hard and rewarding to cheap and frustrating. And some of the sections are like there's one section in the upper city of Anne Orlando. I'm not going to go into specifics, but there are archers that shoot tree trunk arrows at you, and you're walking along a very narrow path, and if they hit you, they're most likely going to knock you off and to your death. There's also a section where you're fighting some really tough skeletons that don't really seem to care when you attack them, and they hit really hard, and they can stun lock you and kill you. There are bosses that can stun lock and kill you, or they have area of effect attacks that if you didn't get out of the way quick enough, it's going to auto kill you. Like there's some parts in the game where I'm just sitting there going like, that's a little frustrating. And I know that this is supposed to be a hard game, but I do think at times it dips over into cheap territory. Now, am I the only one that feels that?
I think that we should probably double back on our statement that this has the best level design in an RPG in a while and has some of the best level design. It might be a more correct, more apt
which areas
statement.
are you talking about that are really bad?
I mean, aside from technical issues, Blighttown also has its fair share of just like completely backwards, like running around and stuff. But like just like some of the issues, Capper
Oh
Demon,
my!
that room,
right.
if you can call it a level.
I got to stop you guys there. What is wrong with the Capper
If
Demon?
you walk,
The room
okay,
is
so
so
the
small.
Capper Demon is an early boss fight with an enemy that later on becomes a regular enemy in the game. So you walk in, and the Capper Demon is this big, bull-headed, tailed mother effer with giant butcher knives. So he's already like a decent foe. He's already, pretty hard to deal with. Now we're going to throw two little doggy enemies in the room that spin the camera around spastically if you happen to target them, and leave you completely open to the Capper Demon's attacks. We're going to take those two elements and then combine one of the smallest boss areas I've ever seen in a video game. If you walk into that Capper Demon room and you get caught on a wall between a dog and the Capper Demon, you're done. You can die so fast in that room that you don't even have a chance to collect yourself.
I know the room is small, but I felt like it was. I walked in, and the dogs kind of run at you. You stab the dogs, and they're dead. And then you run up the stairs. He chases you up the stairs. You stab him a few times.
Right,
You jump.
but
you roll off the top of the staircase.
key of the whole thing. You killed the dogs right away. If the dogs hold back, or if the Capper Demon runs straight at you to start the fight, it's over. Like if
Yeah. See,
go ahead, pal.
For me, one of the dogs always stayed back.
Right, and I only had one that ran forward, and then the Capper Demon does like his jumping attack. So now you're trying to deal with the dog, you're trying to deal with the Capper Demon. The game is just not designed to handle that. This is very much a Z targeting, Zelda style combat system where one-on-one fights are very rewarding and very intense. You start getting more enemies around you, and your odds of death just shot straight through the roof.
Oh yeah.
I guess I also had magic, so I shot the second. The first wolf rushed me, and the second wolf I just shot him with soul arrow.
Yeah,
or whatever
and
it was.
see, I had no magic. I was a knight during that fight. Like I was still in my like starting equipment and whatnot, and that fight just really shows, I think, the limitations. And the combat in this game is great, but there are points where it gets really limited. Like the camera can really spaz out when you target on someone. Like one of the later bosses in the game, like every FAQ online says, do not target him. Because if you target him, the camera spazzes out and you're surrounded by flaming hot liquid magma. And you'll die. Like and that's a limitation of the game's engine. And the Capper Demon just I about flipped out on that fight. I could not believe it. It was already super frustrating, but then to add in the dog enemies that are already pretty difficult, they're pretty hard to fight, and then a super small area, that fight is really ridiculous. Like it's a bad point in the game.
See, for me, I haven't gotten to a point in the game yet where I felt like the difficulty's been unfair, but then again, I haven't rung the second bell yet, I guess, so I haven't gotten to those.
You're gonna get
spots
there.
yet.
I never felt. Maybe only one area I felt was unfair.
Which area was that, without getting too specific?
On Orlando.
Yeah. the tree
I think is
trunk
the
archers.
cheapest. the cheapest area in the game overall. That was like the only time that I was actually like angry at the game itself and not like things in the game. But I always felt that the level design, even Blight Town and the toxic snipers, and I always thought that it was very clever and insidious without being terribly unfair.
You know what gets me with those toxic snipers in Blight Town? It's not that they can snipe you; it's that their little darts make no sound.
Yeah, you're just suddenly poisoned.
Yeah, you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Why is my poison going up?" And then, as you're sitting there trying to figure out why you're poisoned, you get hit by another one, and then you're fully poisoned.
Yeah, and it's not only poison; it's toxin, which like saps your energy even faster, and it kills you so fast that you don't even have a chance to respond. There's that area that was frustrating, but as you guys were telling me, as you guys was telling me in the pre-show warm-up, like those enemies, once you kill them, they don't respawn, which is another cool thing about this game. Not every enemy respawns. The really tough ones don't come back, which is kind of nice. I mean, it gives you incentive to, press your luck and take them out. But then there's the skeleton beasts in the Tomb of the Giants.
Oh my god!
Not only are they freaky as hell, because you just hear this dog-like panting as you're walking around, but these enemies are so freaking tough, and if you make one mistake, they get right up on you and they just start attacking you. They hit super hard, and you're in an area where you're trying not to fall to your death.
That place is an absolute
Luckily
nightmare.
There's only like 4 or 5 of those guys, so you can get through it. And they put a bonfire like right at the halfway point, which was really freaking nice of them. But that part of the game was just like, that's when I gave up on using straight combat and I started to make the switch to pyromancy. And the flame spells in this game, I mean, they don't kill everything. Like certain bosses are not affected at all by fire, and you can kind of figure it out pretty fast because they're surrounded by fire. But the pyromancy spells really help you out, and you start to realize that magic is very, very useful in this game. And Kyle, how did that work out for you? Because you weren't using magic, were you?
Nope.
Game doesn't do a really good job of telling you that, does it?
No, I went with a dexterity-based fighter, which I think was a mistake.
Certain items get dex boosts, but I think overall you kind of have to become a jack of all trades in this game. Even though you start out with a character class, eventually you kind of have to pick up a little bit of magic, maybe a little bit of fighting skill, maybe a long-range weapon. Eventually you need a weapon that is divine, and I'm not going to tell you why, but it makes life very, very helpful. Go ahead, Steven.
Divinity, I actually had a question about that too. I have this halberd that I've been nursing since the beginning of the game, and I maxed it out pretty quickly. And then I got the Ember to make it divine, and then it says I need like a green Titanite shard.
You can buy those from a guy later on in the game. Pretty sure.
Okay, and so is making a weapon divine, is that just basically making it the next level up, or is it actually...
there's different tiers. You can make divine weapons, occult weapons, enchanted weapons, and they add different bonuses. Divine serves a very specific purpose, and I'll tell you after the show. I don't want to give it away. But it serves a very specific purpose, and it's really freaking helpful. And I think that's the big thing. I want to keep talking about difficulty for a second, and then we'll get to where I think the best aspect of the game is. But the difficulty, there were difficulty spikes in Demon's Souls. Like I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The Flame Lurker for a melee character is a total pain in the ass if you don't glitch him. He is such a pain in the ass if you don't glitch him, because eventually he gets to about a third of his health and he just starts jumping around like an idiot, and he never responds to any of your attacks. Now, if you're a magic user, you just end him. There's also the blue dragon at the end of the game where it's kind of like, pray to God he doesn't roast you. Oh, he roasted you. Try it again. There's nothing that bad in Dark Souls, but there are some areas where you're just looking at the game and going, huh.
Or you die and you go...
You just kind of giggle at yourself a little bit. But overall, and it kind of extends to the boss. Are you still laughing?
I'm laughing at the picture Zach sent because it's got Night Solaire and the sun on his shirt is wearing sunglasses.
But there are bosses in the game that are really freaking easy, and then there are bosses that are like super insanely hard. And I don't know what that's all about, but it kind of says to me that I feel that this game needed a little bit more time to fine tune the difficulty. Like some of the later Demon Lord fights in the game are really simple, and then early fights like the Capra Demon are insane. So there are just points where it's like, what is with this difficulty? And then it's nothing. And then the bigger issue are the technical problems, where
Absolutely.
it's the reason why, I wanted to give the game a higher score. I really did, because I probably would have given Demon Souls a 90 as well. And I think Dark Souls is a better game overall. But I could not justify giving this game a higher score with the horrible, pain-inducing frame rate problems, especially in Blighttown, where the game just crawls to the single digits.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not everywhere, and that's the thing, is that fortunately those areas don't last long enough that it totally ruins the game. But it's frustrating enough because you really can't afford to have a lower frame rate in like Blighttown, because you'll get into those situations where there's two dudes chasing you, there's the dude shooting darts at you, and you're crossing a very narrow 2x4 over a cliff. And if you fall off, your souls are going to fall at the bottom of that cliff, and you're never going to get them back.
And then you combine that with there's also a lot of glitches where, like, I know this happened to Steven one time. It actually happened to him on the last podcast, where he died, but the game didn't reset. Or you'll get locked in the environment, or an enemy will be able to hit you through the wall. Like, there are points where the game's ambition clearly, was too high, and it kind of fell back on a technical side. And to me, this game needed a little bit more time to polish.
And here's like an example of that too. Is I fought the Gaping Dragon, and I was fighting with another guy, and basically we kicked his ass. But then halfway through the fight, the Gaping Dragon like fell on me, and my character should have died. But instead of dying, I basically got frozen in an animation and couldn't move. But the other guy could move, and the Gaping Dragon could move, and I wasn't dying. So he killed the Gaping Dragon, and it ended the fight, but then nothing happened to me. So I had to quit out of the game. I had to literally quit out to the PlayStation menu, go back, and then when I finally loaded in, I died, lost all of my souls that I had gotten from the Gaping Dragon, and when I went back, my soul stain wasn't there. And I mean, that was like, I had like 4 humanity and like 30,000 souls.
You get a lot for killing the Gaping Dragon. That seems to be a spot that people are using to farm souls right now, is going in and helping each other on that. But like, there are...
That's a good idea. I didn't even think of that. That was a good idea.
See, I'm a thinker. There's definitely technical issues that I think show that this game needed a little bit more time, and they've said that they're going to patch it. So I'm hoping that they'll fix some of the problems. There is an infinite soul glitch, which is really frustrating if you're a PvP person. You're going to die because people have literally been farming hundreds of millions of souls. That's not cool. So they need to go back and that's not cool. They kind of need to go back and fix that. So I love Dark Souls, but that's one of those things that just really frustrated me. So
the technical problems are definitely regrettable, particularly the frame rate dropping, which I don't think ever killed me, but it was definitely like
you shouldn't have to contend with it.
You had to like move the camera to where it was less frame rate drop than and it was just worse than Blighttown, I think. A few other areas as well. It shouldn't have been there.
But in all fairness, the game does look significantly better than Demon Souls. It looks much, much better.
And I do appreciate the sense of scale, because I think that's one of the coolest things about it. So I definitely wouldn't trade that.
No, and I'm hoping that they're able to iron it out. We'll see what's likely there. I'm hoping that they also go ahead.
If you recall too, in Demon Souls, I mean, there were some serious glitches in that game before. Like, and the thing is, we had such a big gap of time between getting it in the U.S. that they had time to iron them all out of the Japanese version. When Demon Souls came out, I mean, it was pretty busted.
Yeah, and it took 9 months for us to get it in America.
Yeah, so imagine in 9 months, I'm sure they'll have everything working on Dark Souls.
And the other issue, I kind of wish that we had dedicated servers, but Steven and I were talking about that way back when, that it's kind of a sign that they don't want to get into the problem that Atlas is in right now, where Atlas wants to turn off the Demon Souls servers, and they also don't want to screw over their customers. So it's using a peer-to-peer client, and it's really been difficult to get people into my world. I've had a lot of summon failures, and that's a shame, because you're missing out on what I think is the best part of this game, which is the multiplayer. And the multiplayer takes away the game's difficulty, because when you and another dude are walking around dealing with tree trunk shooting arrow bastards, or the two bosses in Anor Londo that are just ridiculously strong, it irons out the difficulty problems. But Kyle, you didn't really enjoy that. You wanted to beat these guys on your own, didn't you?
I did. I think it's just a personal thing. I don't really like multiplayer games. I like doing things without help. I don't like looking at FAQs most of the time. I just like doing things by myself. I think it's a personality thing. On the other hand, I really think that the multiplayer capabilities are really unique and definitely bring some sort of evolution to multiplayer in RPGs, but they're a double-edged sword for me.
I also thought you're not relying on them quite as much as Demon Souls. There are some fights in Demon Souls that you really need a partner. Like the Penetrator, it always comes back to the Penetrator. It always comes back to the Penetrator and the Ceaseless Discharge. Why does it always come back to this? But like the Penetrator fight, you need a partner because he can just pour the pain on. And now luckily they allow you to get a partner in the actual narrative of the game there, but there are other boss fights that you really want to have another person helping you with. And I think Dark Souls, not so much. As much as I despise the final boss of Dark Souls, and that's one of the most tedious and obnoxious stun lock fights I've ever had, I did it myself and I was able to beat him. But there was never a point where I was like, wow, I absolutely positively need help. The two bosses in Anor Londo that give everyone trouble, I think I can take them right now. On my New Game Plus, I think I can take them because I know how they attack. They're not actually that hard until you kill one, and then the other one gets stupid strong.
He gets angry.
Right, but there's nothing that you require an extra player, and the game even gives you the opportunity to summon AI partners, which is really nice. Like you have the opportunity to summon the Knight Solaire if you really need him.
Yeah, I like that. It was a nice touch.
Plus the Knight Solaire as a player.
There's Knight Solaire, and then there's there's a witch that you can summon outside of a couple of boss fights and a couple around. They're scattered around if you kind of like search for these hidden soul signs sometimes.
And that's very helpful. And again, that plays into the constantly rewarding you for exploration, and I think that's the best part of the game. Mm. And obviously when you start making some of the kick-ass weaponry, because the game is much more about upgrading weapons this time than Demon Souls was. Like you can use some of your starting equipment for most of the game. I recommend everyone figure out how to get a hold of the Drake Sword, because that makes life a hell of a lot easier for the opening parts of the game. But you're rewarded for upgrading weapons this time, and game doesn't do a perfect job of telling you that. But as you start to figure it out, that becomes really important. God, I love this game. I really do. Like, for all the anger I had and the fact that my PlayStation controller got 5 feet off the ground after I threw it on a carpeted floor,
Rob, you need anger management.
I got so angry with this game at times. Like, I almost thought I was done. Like, I reached a point where I thought I was done. I was so angry. I was so pissed off, and I was just like, I don't know if I can finish this. And I think maybe because Kyle was playing it too, I felt pushed forward, but I managed to do it. But I was constantly glad that I did. It was like, for that one really bastardly hard, obnoxious section, you get to a part that is just absolutely awesome. Like,
the game rewards you for persistence. Like it knows full well that it's trying to piss you off.
Some of my favorite areas, like the Duke's Archive and the Crystal Cave and
Or the fight with Sif.
Fight with, oh my god, that fight with Sif was awesome. And Sen's Fortress, I think, is one of the best designed areas I've ever seen. A level that makes you super paranoid, but also very careful in the best possible way. I mean, there are awesome sections of this game. I just think it's a shame that because there are areas that maybe could have used a little bit more work, or there's just really insidious crap designed to annoy you, those sections are what stick out in your mind. Unfortunately, you don't remember the awesome parts. You remember the obnoxious parts. But would you guys stop posting funny pictures?
I can try.
Such children. Oh, stiff. So overall, we like this game.
We do.
It's
I love it.
great.
We like it quite a bit. Is there anything else we want to say about it, or are we pretty much? Oh, this is funny.
I'd like to say that as much as I love this game, and it does so many things right, I don't want every game to be like this. In fact, I don't know if I want any other game to be like
Right.
this.
I mean, it becomes a question of, do we actually want another game, another Dark Souls? And I don't know if
I would like another one,
Eventually,
just not right.
I don't
now.
know if I want another
Yeah.
one. Honestly,
Yeah, I don't.
at all.
I mean,
ever?
I've kind of, I could see this falling into a rut. I want to see something.
I mean, yeah.
I want to see something new. I mean, I'm not trying to bag on From Software, but how many freaking Armored Core games do we have? I don't want.
But those aren't particularly
Right, but I
good.
don't want this to become a yearly thing, not only for my own sanity, but also because I think that's what makes it so special. I think Dark Souls is a better game than Demon Souls. I think it plays better, and I think I love the world design. But, there's something special about it, and when you play like your fourth or fifth Metroidvania in a row, you start to lose that specialness. And I would like to see.
Yeah.
That's true, but I don't feel like they would continually hash out the same
No,
thing.
I
in
think
this
they would
case.
change things, and as long as there was enough of a change, like we're gearing up for the sequel season right now, and I know I talk about Assassin's Creed a lot, but like Revelations, I'm interested, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, you guys need to do something new. Like, think about the jump between Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, at least you're going to have Uncharted 3, though.
Wow,
I mean,
you
that's
are
a pretty
such a
distinct
jerk.
change.
You're such a jerk. But you know what I mean? Like, I would like to see a sequel, but I would like to see new stuff in the sequel. I don't want it to just be, here's a new area to go explore.
And not for
Yeah.
a while. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't
2
want
years
it in a
down the
year
line.
because I don't think my blood pressure could take it. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, Demon Souls was 2 years ago.
Well, Demon
so-
Souls was almost 3 years ago. If you count Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you look at it,
Yeah,
look
they
at
took a
that,
long
but-
time to make this. It was funny because when it was announced, my initial reaction was, wow, this is coming out pretty fast. And I had to go, wait a minute. That game came out in like January in Japan back in 2008. Like, yeah, 2009. I think. Yeah, 2009. They've almost had 3 years to make this. So, they had
Yeah.
obviously been working on it. And I think it's already sold very well. I don't know how many of those people are going to enjoy it. I think there's a morbid curiosity about the game right now that, some people. One of my students picked it up because I was talking about it in class. It was a chance to say ceaseless discharge while I was teaching, and
While you're in command of children.
but to not say it in a bad way. I mean, it's not. That's the name of the enemy. I didn't name him. And he went out and picked it up, and I'm like, Hunter, I don't know if you're going to want to play this. Like, this is not a pleasant experience of a game. Like, I walked in on Monday, and I had beaten it on Friday night. I walked in on Monday, and they were like, how you doing, Mr. Steinman? I'm like, I beat it. They're like, yay! I was like, yeah, I beat that game. I don't know if I ever want to play it again. And now I'm playing it again. You need to try the new Game Plus, Kyle. You need to try it.
No.
Dude, it's like every enemy gets a power boost. You can do it. You can do it.
No.
You can
You
do
can
it.
do it. It's good.
I'd rather play Professor Layton, which cannot kill me.
Well, I mean, but technically
far
you
as you
don't
know.
die in Demon Souls. You die, but there's no game over, which is kind of unique.
You know what I mean.
I mean, the game just takes away your souls. Then
Okay, Professor Layton doesn't tell me that I've died.
okay,
He just goes, jolly good there. You fell over the side of the cliff.
so we like Dark Souls, huh? Is everyone gonna
Yeah.
finish it?
I definitely will.
I will
As
definitely
long
finish
as long as it doesn't throw me into a depression that kills myself.
I honestly wish I hadn't been playing it for review because I wouldn't have felt the time constraint to beat it and get the review up on the site. I wish I had taken more time to enjoy it. And there were days where I was like, I think I need a break, but at the same time, I want to get through this section so I can review the game. So I wish I had kind of played it without reviewing it, and I think it would have been a more pleasant experience. This is not a game that you can't storm through this game,
I also don't know if I would use the adjective pleasant to describe the experience, but
But that's part of the game. I mean, this is honestly Team Silent or whatever. Well, they've been disbanded, but whatever. But like, I think that this is the best horror game that we've gotten. This is a game that honestly frightens you. and
Yeah, it's a great.
it's a
game.
horror game. I view it as that. It's very much a game about survival. It's very much a game about fighting really tough enemies that can kill you. The whole point of survival horror is to fight an enemy that makes you feel small, that makes you feel weak, that's tough. And as much as I love Dead Space, Isaac Clarke is really freaking powerful, you know? So there's a fear element when an enemy like jumps up and says boo, but there's not this foreboding.
But if you keep your crap together, you're going to blast his arms off.
Right, but there's none of that in Dark Souls. Like, the first time you see an enemy in Dark Souls, your first inclination is, can I kill this? It's not, will I kill this? It's, can I kill this? So you go up and you hack it a few times and you go, nope, run away. That's it. Run away. There's a lot of running in this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of flee. There's a lot of, oh crap, there's 3 of them. I'm going to go that way.
So are we pretty much done with Dark Souls? Are we ready to talk about news?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess, yeah, the very first news story that I've got has to do with Dark Souls. So it's this new patch that's coming out soon. We'll get to Diablo in a second. New patch is going to, I know, is gonna fix, as Rob mentioned, there's an unlimited souls glitch, which I'm not sure. I've seen a glitch video on YouTube, which I'm not sure if it was specifically the unlimited souls glitch, but there's a glitch in the game where you can use items infinitely. So you could use the consumable soul items, or you could use spells infinitely. And so I saw a video where this dude is running through an area and everything just explodes in flame when he gets close enough. And so they're fixing that. They're rebalancing how regular weapons work against reinforced weapons. So as Rob mentioned before, when you have a regular weapon, you can upgrade it to like a lightning or a fire weapon or a occult or any number of different things. And so what happens there is that when you upgrade it to those different tiers, there's no stat scaling for the weapon. But you get a boost in, lightning damage. Or
so now they're going to put a stat boost on it?
And, well, no. The problem was that the reinforced weapons were too powerful. So the lightning spear that you can pick up somewhere in the, I don't want to spoil it, but when you upgrade to those better weapons, it's a notable and very dramatic boost. And the stat scaling on regular weapons isn't quite strong enough. So I think they're boosting the stat scaling. They're going to be fixing the matchmaking issues, which will make hopefully multiplayer a lot better. So I think right now it works in like 10% of your soul level. You can summon people, and so they might be widening that or widening the actual network code restraints or whatever.
I wanted to mention real quick, not trying to interrupt, but the PvP isn't as huge of an issue in this game because first off, you're almost always dead. In this game, you're almost always in your zombified undead form, which is,
and you look very attractive when you're in that
you
form.
look like I was going to say an actress's name, and then that would just be tacky. I'm not going to do that. But luckily, no.
Wait.
Which actress? I was probably going to go with like Cher or something, but
interestingly enough, I was thinking Cher.
But luckily, when you're in your dead form, you don't have your health put at half. Like you don't have half your health cut off anymore.
Yes.
Which was the biggest pain in the ass part about Demon Souls was I always wanted to be in human form, but then I was being constantly invaded. So you can only be invaded when you're in human form, and the invasions only really take place with either a consumable item or with a certain item that you get from one of the covenants. When you're invaded, the invading player cannot heal themselves with flasks. They can heal themselves with miracles, but they can't heal themselves with flasks. So the onus is on them. The onus is on them to kill you, and that goes the same way when you summon people into your world. They can't heal themselves, so you as the commanding player, you as the human player, you have to heal them by drinking the Estus flasks. So you're kind of...
See, I really like that because that really emphasizes the whole you have to be cognizant of how your
Exactly, and
partner's doing.
I wonder why one of my buddies like backed off one time, and I started drinking the flasks to keep him alive because he was doing way more damage to the gaping dragon than I was.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I
that
was like,
too.
you go. I'm gonna sit here and sit at the base and drink Estus. Everything will be fine. But so the player versus player isn't nearly as bad as it was in Demon Souls. I was very rarely invaded, and it puts a lot of pressure on the invading player, which I think it should. The only problem is that one area in the game, and hopefully they balance this, one area of the game, the Covenant is just designed with protecting this area, and the scaling of the levels doesn't match up, so you don't have to be within 10 levels. You can invade anyone, and so people that are using the Infinite Soul glitch are now walking around and just devastating people in this area. So, pro tip, do not go into human form in the Darkroot Forest.
Unless you like to be
not
dead.
go in, because you'll literally make it about 30 seconds before you're invaded. And that's already a tough area. You don't want to be fighting stuff. So, sorry, Zach, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Anyways, yeah, no worries. And so I guess along the lines of PvP, they're fixing the Ring of Fog. They're balancing that. They're balancing the Tranquil Walk of Peace spell, which slows you down when you're in the immediate radius of your enemy. They're rebalancing Magic Shield and Strong Magic Shield and just a bunch of other items. Because especially Ring of Fog, it really imbalances PvP.
Yeah, does that work on enemies too? What we're talking about is the Ring of Fog makes it so that no one can target you, which makes fighting you, like I had somebody, they put on the Ring of Fog and then they just walked around me and stabbed me in the back while I was like swinging like an idiot trying to kill them.
Well, and you turn kind of like
right.
See-through,
And
right?
does the Ring of Fog also work on enemies too? So
I don't know about that.
Because I kind of want to get the Ring of Fog because there's some areas where I think it would be helpful to not be seen. So there's going to be rebalancing for Dark Souls, and I think that could make the game better. And I think it shows that From Software is aware of these situations, and hey, they got the game out in a timely manner. So there's going to be some balancing issues. You don't realize what people are going to do until they have their hands on the game. So I think that's why Blizzard does very long beta tests, because they realize that, hey, if we release this game right now, like, it's going to be very different. Think about the Corpse Explosion and Skeletons for the Necromancer in Diablo 2. Two very broken skills in very different ways that they had to iron out over the course of like 4 years.
Well, yeah. So speaking of Blizzard and such,
why are you talking about Blizzard? Are you talking about Mists of Pandas?
God.
If you want to talk about World of Warcraft, we can talk about World of Warcraft.
Well, let's just talk about everything they announced.
For last.
Yeah. Let's talk about. Okay, so Blizzard, BlizzCon was this weekend, this past couple days, I think. And so Diablo 3 is some of the big news that they have. I'm going to start with the collector's edition. They've announced. Yeah, so if I have the collector's edition for StarCraft 2 just because that's what they happen to have when I went and picked it up spontaneously at the midnight launch, and it's a lovely thing, and I really kind of want to get the Diablo 2 special edition as well, which has – or 3, yeah. Well, it has Diablo 2 in it. It has so it has the game, obviously, and as well also has – where is
it has a USB Soulstone that has
that has both of Diablo. I think it's Diablo 2 and Lord of Destruction.
I don't think it has Diablo 1, which is kind of a shame. Like that's a little bit of a bummer. I want to play, even though Diablo 1 is like horribly slow and broken. I would kind of like to play it again.
Diablo 1 is awesome.
It's very slow though, because there's no run button.
Well, yeah,
just put a run button in Diablo 1 and I'll love it again.
But anyways, yeah. So you got that. There's an art book. I think there's a DVD, Blu-ray. It's like a 2-disc thing with like cinematics and I think a making of. And then there's a variety of like pets for I think. Oh no, it's there's an in-game mount for World of Warcraft, and there's I think they give you new portraits for StarCraft 2. When you link it to the same Battle.net account, so you can't transfer those things, sell them on eBay or whatever. But yeah. So with that, you can also get Diablo 3 for free if you play World of Warcraft.
They don't need to give it to me for free.
I'll pay them money. Yeah, it doesn't come with Diablo 1. Just thought I'd throw that out there. It does not come with Diablo 1. Kind of a shame.
Yeah, and so this other thing that Blizzard announced, I don't know if you've heard of this game. It's World of Warcraft. It's a kind of big deal. is, well, first of all, they have their new expansion, Mists of Pandaria, which we'll talk about in a second. But if you had an account before they announced this, you can buy what they call an annual pass to World of Warcraft, which is heavily discounted. I don't have the exact rate right now in front of me, but if you buy an annual pass to World of Warcraft and you've had your account before the 18th of October, which was a couple days ago, I think that's like the day before they made the announcement, they'll give you a free copy of Diablo,
which is awesome.
The link to your account, which is pretty rad. I mean, if I still played World of Warcraft, I would consider doing this, just because it's why not? Because if I was playing World of Warcraft anyways.
Now, is this a digital copy of Diablo 3?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think so. But if you buy the collector's edition of Diablo 3, you can then register that to your account with the annual pass and get an additional 4 months for free of World of Warcraft. So they're kind of balance, so if you have the game and you're going to buy it already, then so maybe if you need to get on your WoW kick.
I gotta say that's a super aggressive move with Knights of the Old. I keep wanting to say Knights of the Old Republic. With the Old Republic coming out, that's a very aggressive move. Very, very aggressive. We talk about that in the next segment of the show. We're obviously recording this second, but we talk about that in the Old Republic part of the show. That's very, very aggressive on Blizzard's part. So maybe Blizzard views Old Republic as an actual contender.
I don't think they view it as a contender. I think they just want to beat it into the ground so dead that it never comes back.
Diablo.
Because they want to be like, we'll teach you to copy someone else's idea.
Did you see the cinematic for Diablo 3? Okay, but
what's all right. We're talking about Diablo here, so it's perfectly permissible. You know what's great about the Black Soulstone cutscene is that's just the intro, and that there's going to be a cutscene where Diablo shows up and punches a hole through that guy.
I'm so freaking. I have a new prediction. Because my prediction was wrong. I was saying last year that I thought it was going to come out at the end of this year. I think it's going to be Valentine's Day. That's what I think it's going to be Valentine's Day. I think that they're doing a great beta test right now. They've really created a lot of awareness. I think they'll announce it maybe 2 months out from release, but I think it's going to be Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully we'll hear about that soon. But one last bit of Diablo news is that at BlizzCon there was a question I think that someone asked about the console version, and they haven't confirmed a console version yet, but they have been playing with console controls. They're trying to get some sort of thing worked out, and they've said that they're not going to announce a console version until it's kind of perfect and perfectly set up, and that they can promise that the game will come out. But but they have been playing with console controls, and apparently targeting is an issue because for loot gathering and who to attack and whatever. But they're all so we'll see. Hopefully we'll hear about that at some point for those of us, not me, but for those of you listeners who may not have a super high power.
Oh, this thing's going to run on everything. That's the great thing about Diablo 3.
That is true.
It's going to run on everything. You can play StarCraft 2 on just about anything. And that's really a smart move on Blizzard's part. And I think that's part of the long Blizzard development cycle is they make something that is infinitely scalable. Like my Alienware desktop, I can play StarCraft 2 at max settings, and it looks gorgeous. I can play it on my BS laptop, my school laptop. Runs fine. It's not a huge hit. It looks good.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, yeah. So just to keep going on, World of Warcraft: Mists of Pandaria expansion announced.
Doesn't that look silly?
This is. You don't want to play as a panda?
Looks so silly.
Here's the thing. We just destroyed the entire world. Here's some pandas.
It's it's a change of pace for World of Warcraft. I think the interesting thing is that Cataclysm was that kind of expansion that revitalized the game, but also kind of brought a really big world arc to a close. Yeah. A really big story arc. And so now Mists of Pandaria, I feel like it's getting into EverQuest territory where we're going to maybe not see, because it's been, how long since Cataclysm?
Like a year,
while.
right?
So they haven't dated this new expansion yet, but it'll come out. I'm thinking 2000, like late 2012 maybe, or perhaps earlier. But we'll see soon enough. But so we've got new race is the Panda Ren, and they're
which in Chinese just means panda people.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. My semester of Chinese that I took way back when. And so you have the Panda Ren who are apparently skilled in martial arts. And so
skills.
Yeah, and so there's a new continent which is Pandaria, and so that's where you start with the Panda Ren character. And there's a new class monk, and so it's apparently like a martial arts focused class. Hopefully they'll throw some more fist weapons into the game because those are pretty nifty, but they never were very useful. And they also can heal, so it's kind of like almost like the monk from Guild Wars
from Diablo 3.
Diablo 3. That's the game that's coming out.
Let's talk more about it.
Anyways, so but there's just real quick, new level cap, new PvE scenarios, new dungeon modes, pet battles, which is kind of going to be like Pokemon in your WoW. And then like a new talent system, and one of the other things is that the Panda Rens aren't Alliance or Horde specific. You make a character, and then at some point when you're I think probably before you hit like level 20 or whatever, you have to choose which side you're gonna fight on. Neutral? I don't think so. It's it's apparently the new kind of Pandaria thing is that they're bringing the notion of this, like the Alliance versus Horde thing back.
Hello,
Steven. We hear you.
Yeah. They're bringing the Alliance versus Horde conflict back to the game, whereas Cataclysm was more focused on this big world destroying sort of thing. And I think what was it in Burning Crusade, 2 expansions before? Oh my God, this game's been out for a while. 2 expansions before, they had the neutral cities. I think Wrath of the Lich King worked similar to that. But anyway, so that's that.
More news.
In more massively multiplayer news, did you guys talk about Final Fantasy 14 2.0?
That's actually a pretty interesting topic, because I really respect that they're totally revamping the game, and the art looks great. But it's not going to make a difference. Nothing they do about that game is going to save it from being an absolute, complete, total failure.
I think they've pissed so many people off that even, I don't know, people will probably go back, but you've already kind of pissed off your market base, The list of improvements
the thing
looks great.
Is, too... Yeah. The thing with it is that it's already seen as a failure, and... they can relaunch it all they want, but first of all, they're charging people, and they say it won't be till the end of 2012 that it gets this update. By then, no one's going to care about that game.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, they already don't.
It's a bummer, but yeah. So, they're basically revamping. For those of you who are unaware, they're completely, almost like redoing. Actually, they are completely redoing the game. They're putting it in a new graphics engine. None of the current content is going to be available once it hits like the updated thing, like the updated version. They're making these broad sweeping changes. And so if you want more specific information, definitely check out the article on the site. There's a link to the actual press release, I think it was, from the Final Fantasy 14 website, which has specific PDFs that outline like all of the changes and some really good looking concept art. But an interesting thing is that they may get Vita and smartphone support and perhaps Xbox 360 support way down the road. Granted, but it was the producer and director Naoki Yoshida that said, they're looking into Vita, they're looking into smartphones.
They said it.
But this is something that will come, decidedly after the PS3 version, which is itself only coming out after they release this 2.0
They said
update.
And that's the problem, is they're like, oh yeah, we're going to release these apps for it so you can check your auction house. I'm like, dude, that doesn't make a difference if nobody's playing your game and nobody's playing it.
More importantly is now they've said that they want to get the PS3 version out, which I didn't think it was ever going to come out. So there's another one of my predictions shot to hell. But they said it on the 8-4 Play podcast, so I want to give them credit. Like, if this is coming out to PS3 sometime late next year, we're probably going to be talking about new consoles next year. Like, we've gotten information this week that, you know, apparently Xbox 720 or whatever the hell is going to come out in 2013. So we're going to start seeing the first rumblings of that. If this is an MMO coming out at the very end of a console's life cycle, I think they better get ready to rely on the PC version. And they've already said that the PC,
granted,
the graphics, what they've set as their benchmark, it is a huge graphical improvement. It's not going to look that good on PS3. So maybe they're going to rely on the PC.
Think about what they're doing with Dragon Quest X. They have a Wii version
That's
and a Wii
whole
U
other
version
train wreck.
that will come out. I mean, yeah, true. But they might do something similar if a PlayStation 4 were to come out in 2013.
I still think Square Enix is going to backtrack a little bit on Dragon Quest X, just based off the fact that when they first announced Dragon Quest IX, it looked completely different, and then a bunch of people in Japan said that they were going to kill themselves, and the Square Enix guys for making it on it, like they said they were going to kill themselves, and all of a sudden Square Enix was like, oh, okay, we're going to go back to making a regular old Dragon Quest game. I don't know if that's going to happen with Dragon Quest X, but I wouldn't be surprised if some things radically change. I would not be surprised. More news.
Well,
we got to get moving, guys.
On an even bigger multiplayer kick, Mass Effect 3 has multiplayer. It's been confirmed, and if you recall my prediction for Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, a kind of separate from the campaign, but having to do with the conflict on Earth, where you team up with 4, like kind of generic people. It's in an old podcast. You guys should look it up.
Zach was right.
I was right. Anyway, so it's this new. So they're calling it the Galaxy at War multiplayer. You play not as Shepard, but as kind of a customized character of sorts, where you can be. It's one of a handful of classes.
Garrus.
I don't know if I don't
Garrus
think they're not. It's kind of like you play as generic characters. Yeah, I would play that. But they're you play 4 players co-op, kind of going through I think missions or some sort of like horde mode style thing, and fight against co-op enemies, and it can contribute to the ending of your game,
which is kind of weird.
And it's kind of weird, but they've also said that there won't that you can get the best ending in the game without having touched the multiplayer.
That's good.
So it's a nice thing for people. I think that depending on how much they've refined the combat and what they do with that, it could be like a really cool way to like spend an afternoon is like playing through this multiplayer content when Mass Effect 3 comes out. So I suppose we'll find out what happens. And if you want to get a hand on that before the game actually comes out, there's going to be a demo. And to get the demo, you have to get Battlefield 3. So, consider that. So they're going to have a demo of some of the multiplayer content. I don't know if it's also the single player, but it says so. There's a single player demo, and then the multiplayer demo is only through Battlefield 3.
Even if you listen to the last couple podcasts, I was really, really against multiplayer, and I actually like the co-op that they have planned for this because if you think about it, it would be pretty fun, to play any of those classes, to level up, and to just, do a couple of combat missions in that. And the fact that it doesn't affect the single player in that you can still play the single player and totally ignore it is, I kind of like the direction they're taking with it.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be huge. It's not going to be a huge part of the game. It's just going to be, kind of a nice add-on, and that's interesting. And it's exactly what we wanted it to be without being overbearing on the product.
And exactly what
you predicted, Zach. I give credit where credit's due. So I definitely.
It's made by a separate.
What's that, Kyle?
I'm glad it's made by a separate team as well.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
like
I see
they're
that.
not wasting their time.
So I'm excited for it. I just I probably won't play it that much. I really do like the Mass Effect 2 combat, but I don't unless they do some things. I'm an old Left 4 Dead player. Unless they do some things that really enact teamwork and really force me to work as a team, and it doesn't just feel like a shooting gallery, I probably won't play it that much. But I mean, still, it's nice to have in there. And if it doesn't, if it's just adding to the
Sure.
game, hey, cool.
It's more Mass Effect content, which is never really a bad thing.
Keep going. How many more games?
I think
I guess that's kind of the all
Is
of
that
the
the
big
big
news. I mean, there's Final Fantasy 13 2 DLC that we can talk about again, but it's just that it's going to be on. You have to buy like the CDs to get all of it. That's kind of silly, that game. Final Fantasy 13.
Final Fantasy 13 too. A lot of people saying it's not going to do well.
I mean, a lot of people are also saying it's better than 13 , but that's not saying too much. We'll see.
I'm not
We'll see
interested, but I'm interested in
hating.
Versus.
No, this is not
I'm interested in Versus 13 because it looks like
they're not making that game anymore, Rob. Oh, I mean, they're working on it, and it'll be out in the near future.
We'll see when it comes out. You remember how that was one of the first games shown for the PlayStation 3? Wow.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Wow. All right, so I think that's it for this portion of the show. We're moving on. Dave and John joined me the other day to talk about the Old Republic. So we sat down and talked about that. So I guess we'll bid farewell to this portion. Thank you very much, Zach, Steven, and Kyle. Really awesome to talk to you guys about Dark Souls. And Kyle, I think you should go back and play New Game Plus. Just a simple no.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. So thanks a lot, guys, and stay tuned, listeners, for the Old Republic.
You're not seriously going to open that way, are you?
I figured that's the best way to open. So, welcome to the Old Republic discussion. I am Robert Steinman, and joining me we have the person who apparently doesn't like my music.
This is John McCarroll, executive editor. I'm Keeper X on our forums.
I figure I have to do it because if not, we're gonna get sued if we use any of John Williams' music. So I figured that was
didn't even sound close. I don't think we're in any danger.
excellent. And we have the podcast virgin on the show, David Yeager.
Hey, what's up?
So we have been playing the Old Republic. We are the 3 beta testers for RPG Fan, and we are going to regale you about our journeys through the ancient galaxy far, far. David, just take it away from me,
Yeah,
please.
you got it. So let's get one thing out of the way right away. If you've played World of Warcraft, you've basically played this game. The quickest and easiest way to describe this is World of Warcraft in space. And that's pretty much how the gameplay goes here. Right down to World of Spacecraft, World of Starcraft, whatever you want to call it. But you got lightsabers, and you got Wookiees, and you got Twi'leks. But the gameplay is almost exactly like World of Warcraft, down to the key mappings on your keyboard. Down to pretty much every last thing, down to the way quests work, down to the way the mouse works, left clicks, right clicks. Everything works exactly the way it does in World of Warcraft.
So now I got to stop and ask right there, because I'm sure when some people hear that, they think that we're being negative. But is that a negative that this thing is emulating the most successful MMO of all time?
I think that it's not an accident. I think that it had to be an intentional design decision to make. I think what they're looking to do here is I don't think they're going to look with this game to convert too many players that aren't already playing MMOs. I don't think they're looking to get that crowd. And if they do get that crowd, it's a model that is already proven to work with the casual crowd. So if this happens to be somebody's first game, first MMO, especially if they're a Star Wars person that doesn't play too many video games, which is where, let's face it, World of Warcraft found massive success in the crowd of people that doesn't play a lot of single-player video games. If they're Star Wars fans that haven't played an MMO yet, they're probably going to play this, and I think they might enjoy it. And the control scheme is going to help them with that because it's an already proven control scheme that appeals to the casual gamer.
And what I wanted to say is that I think it's a good thing that they're emulating World of Warcraft, because it is probably the easiest game to get into. As well, there have been a couple of sci-fi MMOs that were different, and and games that were not bad. But you and I both know how long Tabula Rasa lasted.
Oh yes. And that was supposed to be, that was where they really tried something new. With MMO style gameplay. And I think that the games that have been able to survive are the ones that haven't done too much new stuff in the way of gameplay. Let's be honest here.
Even when World of Warcraft first came out, World of Warcraft was not original at all. World of Warcraft was derivative of things that had been done in EverQuest and in several other MMOs.
A really good point. Mm-hmm. Good point. And, isn't that kind of part of what, part of Blizzard's MO, has always used to be, taking something that, maybe some other people have done, but making it perfect, if close to perfection as they can get it.
Right.
I don't think that BioWare is looking here to do anything with Star Wars, the Old Republic, that hasn't been done in the MMO space before. Now, perhaps I shouldn't, go that far. There are some interesting things they've added on that we can certainly get to. Things like they have, for example, kind of AI-assisted companions. As you get into the later levels, it looks to me like you're going to be able to build something, if not a party, you're not going to be able to gather up an army to go, kind of do all the quests yourself with yourself and all your AI companions. But you can at least get one AI companion at a time.
Just to back up a sec, though, I think that with the World of Warcraft model, I mean, I only played World of Warcraft for like an hour. My buddy brought it over one time when I was still in graduate school, and I played it, and I was like, okay, I can kind of see the appeal of this, but it's not really my cup of tea. It's very non-interactive. It's a type of game that doesn't really speak to me. And then I started playing Old Republic, and I was like right back to that same mindset. And I guess it was just surprising to me. I know Steven said it before on the show that it was surprising that BioWare didn't decide to do something new. I think we expect to have innovation out of BioWare, but this is kind of them playing it safe, going with a model that works. And, it disappointed me a little bit, but I think it's also because that's not what I'm looking for as a player. John and I talked on the phone when I first started playing the game, and I said, John, this just isn't speaking to me in terms of gameplay. I'm really not enjoying it. And John was very quick to point out, well, this isn't your type of game. I like more games that are very interactive, that give a lot of player choice, that give lots of reciprocity. I like games like Demon Souls. I like games like Dark Souls, where I feel like I'm actually in combat. Meanwhile,
if there was an opposite of Souls, it would be a World of Warcraft. I mean, it's not, you're not looking at anything that's really gonna. I mean, with the exception of some large raiding parties where you really have to work together with like several other people, there's not a whole lot out there in terms of challenge in an MMO, and that's by design, in most instances.
It doesn't get hard until the very end because you want the players to play as long as possible.
Exactly.
One thing I do want to make note of that we probably should have made note of at the very beginning is the amount of time that we spent playing. I know I've only spent 6 or 7 hours. I actually had some pretty significant crash issues that ended up being unrelated to the game, but so I wasn't able to get in all the play that I wanted to.
Yeah, and I was very much at the other end where I only played for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and I apologized to John over and over again that it wasn't speaking to me. It became a chore for me to play, and I think that speaks more to what I'm looking for in experience. I don't think that's necessarily indicative of the quality of the game, and I just want to be clear on that.
And we also, because I don't know how long Dave played for. I know he got the most play out of all of us. But we none of us ever got to advanced stages of the game, which it's really unfair to grade an MMO without hitting raids or without hitting any of that other content, because that's really the meat of it for a great majority of players is the dungeons and that sort of thing, which we didn't have the ability to be. We weren't exposed to that yet.
Yeah, and we were all playing on the the Republic side, which pissed me off a little bit because we all know I'm pure evil. So
but here's something interesting.
Yeah, this is kind of cool.
This is a good trend. This is a good time to bring this up. One of the things that's interesting is like people who are familiar with World of Warcraft know that you either pick the quote unquote good side, the Alliance or whatever, and then or the side with the orcs and monsters, and the evil side.
So many people will argue with you because I would see this every week in the World of Warcraft forums, is that how the Horde is actually the good side.
Yeah, well, I think you could make an argument for that, but I'm not even getting into that. The point being that once you pick a side, it's kind of, you're on a certain philosophy. You know what I mean? Like, you're approaching the game from a certain way, and you're not going to be able to. There's not a whole lot of crossover or moral decisions to make. One thing that's really cool about Star Wars is that it became apparent pretty early on, even though we were playing Republic, who is ostensibly the good side in Star Wars. Although you're going to get the same arguments on the Sith side, I'm sure, when people start playing. But ostensibly the good side, you have the ability to go dark side. I mean, that's pretty obvious from the get-go in the game. Some of the choices that you can make in the game give you dark side points, and it seems apparent that you are going to at least have the ability to play an evil character or a character with evil morality on what is supposed to be the good guy's side, which I found really intriguing.
I got to disagree slightly. Like, I totally understand that that's what they're going for, and I was playing as a smuggler, so, I'm playing a Han Solo type character where, you get your dialogue options, and it's very Paragon Renegade. And I think that's why it struck me as you're not so much being good or evil, it's just the difference between being a nice guy and a dick. And I think I don't think a Jedi is suddenly going to go like freaking Anakin on the Sand People like out of nowhere. I don't see that happening.
Anakin did.
Huh? What?
I said, why not? Anakin did.
Then he fell to the dark side, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't think maybe down the road they're going to do something cool where like a Jedi can fall to the Sith, or maybe a Sith can turn. I don't know, but like to me, it was just the difference between being a nice guy and being a dick.
Well, let me counter that with a specific quest. I believe we're allowed to talk about quest content in general terms as long as we don't quote.
Yeah, we unfortunately are limited by an NDA. We can't get really specific about things. Like, I don't think we can talk about like this is exactly what happened in this quest. But I'm sure if you talk in general terms,
let me present to you like the quest itself, and if we need to edit this out later, fine. But there was a quest when I was doing the Jedi Consular class path where there were two of your fellow Academy members were clearly in a relationship. All right, and this sort of thing is supposed to be bad news for a Jedi. The passion is bad, et cetera, et cetera. And so you are tasked with trying to go spy on them and try to see what they're up to. And the options that you're given there are not black and white. All right, they're very, very difficult choices. But the game clearly takes a stance on what leads to the dark side and what does not, based on what you're doing. And it's not just a simple matter of what Rob is describing is definitely true. There are probably, it's just too easy to have situations where you can either just be a dick and say, give me money, or, I'm not going to do this. That type of stuff is pretty obvious. But there were definitely some examples of quests that had really interesting, moral choices. And even if you thought you were doing kind of the okay thing, it's not so bad for me to do this. Boom, here comes the dark side points. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I'm interested to see how they play that out. I think that could go into the end game content that we don't know anything about, where I think it would be kind of cool to have a Jedi. I forget the Sith's name from the first like expanded universe novels, like the first really big ones back in the 90s, I think. And there was like a Sith that wasn't really a bad guy. He was just kind of his own individual, like. And I think that would be kind of a cool angle for them to go, where you're a Jedi that's maybe a little bit more tuned to the dark. It's not shades of black and white. I think that they could do some really cool stuff with that. But for the time being, my limited experience with the game was just Paragon or Renegade, give me money, or, I'm going to go do this completely altruistically and be nice.
To be fair, the majority of stuff I ran up against did have those type of options. Yeah.
One thing I'm very interested in seeing is I know I don't remember if it was EverQuest or EverQuest 2 that did this. I was never really a heavy EverQuest player, but you could actually you selected the good or evil, and there were very long quests that you could go on to change sides.
Yeah, kind of like how in Oblivion you have to if you want to lose your vampirism, like you have to go on a long quest chain to kind of regain yourself. That could be really cool, and I'm sure that BioWare has already thought of that. That could be cool stuff. Can I mention what my impression of this game was like, because it gets into the storytelling element?
Yeah, please. We're past our embargo date. It's just we can't go into extreme specifics.
Oh, I know. It's just I didn't want to change gears too much. I just so I made my guy, and I land on the planet, and it was funny because I get off the ship and everybody's talking to me about what a badass smuggler I am, and it feels like Mass Effect. It's got kind of this cartoony look, which it threw me for a loop because the first cinematics for the game were like really hardcore, like intense, crazy, like.
It almost looked like the guys out of the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah, no, it really did.
So very much so. Yeah,
which is cool. I mean, it definitely gives the game. The game feels like Star Wars, but you get off your ship and you're having these Mass Effect dialogues, and you're kind of feeling like you're having an impact. And that was where I was interested. I was interested in the game having a story element and feeling very much like a BioWare RPG right now, Dragon Age, Mass Effect. And then the first mission is like, go turn off these 5 thingies out in the field. And I was just like, okay.
Since Dave and I both play console Rs, we ran into that thing where one of the first quests you get is, go rescue these other Padawans who are stuck in wooden cages.
Yeah, it's truly dark days indeed for the Jedi Academy. Padawans can no longer escape a thin wooden plank.
Yeah, I think that's where my biggest issue with this game is really coming from, where I feel like what they're doing from a storytelling perspective, from adding in an actual narrative into an RPG, an MMO, is awesome. Like, this does not feel like World of Warcraft, where you go up to the guy with the exclamation point over his head and you get this long line of text and it tells you to go kill 5 rats.
Right.
Instead, you're getting this really awesome cinematic with great dialogue, wonderful voice acting that's telling you to go kill 5 rats. It's like,
it is interesting because they've clearly gone out of their way to make you feel like the number one badass in the galaxy.
That is cool.
Definitely not something that you see in other MMOs. All right, you basically, it's you and 50 bazillion other people delivering, the same item to the same NPC over and over again. In this game, one of the things they've done that I thought was really kind of a neat idea was the storytelling instances, where you've got if you're on your main class path, you're able to see some areas sometimes where there's little green shimmering curtains that kind of look like your classic Star Wars force field type of thing. When you walk through them, you're kind of put into your own storytelling instance, and all of a sudden, all the people running around and everything, you don't see them anymore. And it's just you and your commanding officer if you're playing, a trooper, which is one of the, I tried to try out all the different classes while we had time in the beta. But, you have these cool meetings with your, commanding officer and your support team, on the special ops unit you're on. On the Jedi consular side, you're meeting with your master, and in those missions, when you get to the mission locations where you need to actually go get the 5 items or whatever it may be, at least in some instances, you see again that green shimmering screen where only you and anybody who's not of your class can go in. And what that does is it kind of disguises the fact that, hey, guess what? Tens of thousands of other people, BioWare certainly hopes it's going to be that many, tens of thousands of other people are also doing this same quest.
Yeah.
But you don't see that, and I think that's kind of a clever approach to the problem, one of the essential problems of the MMO.
I find that incredibly interesting too, because you look at many MMOs and they're like, we're trying to get away from instancing, we're trying to get away from all of that stuff, so they'll instance in dungeons and that's it, and that's the way World of Warcraft is. So it's intriguing to have these little mini instances where it's actually not in a technological sense because you can't have that many people in that space, but it's used in a storytelling sense, and I find that to be unique. And it's functional here, certainly.
Oh, yeah, definitely works.
I definitely liked it, too, and I think it cut down on some of the problems that I saw playing, my brief time with World of Warcraft, where there's like 10 people lined up right next to the one quest giver in town. So it does help to make you feel like this is your story, to make this feel like you are the most important guy in the universe, as Dave was saying. And, when BioWare said that this is Knights of the Old Republic 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for every class, I can see what they're talking about there, because it does kind of feel like the opening of Dragon Age. And all I was thinking when I was playing this game was, not having a big MMO background, was this is what BioWare was saying, and what a lot of reviewers were saying when they said that Dragon Age is an offline MMO, where you're going around and you are controlling a party that very much acts like an MMO. You have your tank, your healer, this, that, and the other, but you're controlling each aspect. Where I really started to like the beginning storytelling and narrative part of the Old Republic caught me by surprise, and I was really interested with that. If we're ready to talk about the combat, though, the combat just left me completely, for lack of a better word, flaccid.
Now,
one thing, like, what is going on here?
Just really quick before we move on to combat, kind of, I want to talk about the way that the Old Republic made me feel. Now, obviously, you guys are not here with us, but I just linked Dave and Rob to a Penny Arcade from November 14th of 2008, and this is really the same way that the game made me feel, which is it's the comic from when the Wrath of the Lich King first came out, and it's like, oh man, this is awesome, look at all this really cool stuff here, and the first thing the NPC tells you is, I want you to kill 6 snow moose.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's unfortunate that parts of the game really, really feel like Star Wars, and parts of the game feel like World of Warcraft or EverQuest or insert generic whatever here.
You know where I feel the game has this identity complex, and I don't know if they're going to be able to, I don't know if this is something they want to address, but the game does kind of have this identity complex in that the quests that are the class quests that pull you along on your story where you are, the biggest badass in the galaxy, those work because you're going into these areas where you can go in them with a group. Sometimes you need to have a group or at least one other person with you to make it through, and those are great. Those sequences are great, and some of the storytelling there is has all your classic BioWare elements. But then you've got the side quests, and you run into these side quests all over the place, which are, yes, kill 6 things, go kill me 7 flesh raiders and things like that. And so on the one hand, it's this, you've got this list of things to do. On the one hand, you've got this task from your Jedi Master, go retrieve this lost artifact that's been gone for thousands of years. Oh, and also this other guy wants you to go pick up my laundry, type of thing.
Yeah,
it's that type of complex, kind of a bit of an identity crisis.
And there are definitely moments like that in other BioWare games, though. I mean, you have that in Mass Effect or even in Dragon Age, where you have those kind of fetch questy things.
I'm glad that we have Jaeger on here, because Jaeger was the one who he went up to Baltimore back in March or February to meet with the guys who were doing Reckoning, which is another EA RPG coming out that's kind of competing against the BioWare games. And one of the developers had said, it's frustrating in games where you have 2 active quests, one of which is save the world, the other one which is find my pants.
Find my pants, yes. I think that needs to be a catchphrase for RPG making. I mean, the find my pants quest I've never heard it more succinctly said.
It's true.
And you got a few of those. You got a few of those in Star Wars for sure.
I think Bethesda's actually done a really good job of getting away from that, because the major side quests in Fallout and even New Vegas, they always feel important. Now, granted, you're maybe going out and collecting, Abraham Lincoln's repeater rifle, but it's still something that feels better. And I think BioWare at times is kind of stuck doing meaningless quests. I mean, John, can you think of any of the side quests in Dragon Age 2? Can you think about any of the baubles or bits that you had to pick up and what you took back to someone?
No. Like, I totally don't remember or care about any of the quests from Dragon Age. I enjoyed the combat in the game and I enjoyed the story, but no, that game took a lot of bad elements out of MMOs along with the good ones.
That brings me to another question. What is with all of the crap in your inventory in BioWare games lately? Yeah. I mean, seriously, like, you go around in Star Wars and you're going to find all kinds of garbage, that you hang on to and then go and sell. Just give me the damn credits or the damn gold.
Because
carry all this crap around for?
Bears don't have credits, and I think inventory management is something that has become kind of a garbage element in MMORPGs, where, yes, I understand that you don't want me to carry around, 80 sets of armor and everything else, but I guarantee you less than a week into after the Old Republic has launched, there will be a sell every gray item mod.
I hope so. I think.
I mean, this is Star Wars, right? I mean, you should have some kind of whiz-bang gadget that can, melt this stuff down into some, call it whatever. Didn't they do this in Mass Effect? You could melt everything down
into Omnigel, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's two things that I have to comment on that, and both of them come from Diablo. Either BioWare needs to get a hold of some guys from Blizzard North, now that they're dissolved and gone. They need to grab some of those guys to teach them how to do loot.
Well, hold on. You say grab the guys from BioWare or from Blizzard North. We had a couple of bad games that came from them, so
that's true. That's true. But
it's gonna go with Runic. Torchlight is basically, they got it right. Just have a bunch of cool stuff.
But also
stacks in the same way.
But speaking to Torchlight and Diablo 3, I think that the standard model in these loot games is going to be what they're doing in Diablo 3 and Torchlight, where you have a quick sell option or a quick meltdown. Like, I feel like one of the things that's making those games so impressive is the usability of the interface. And when I opened up my inventory in Old Republic, I honestly said F this, and I closed it. I was just like, I am not looking at that. That just frustrated me. There was so much crap in there. I had no idea which blaster rifle was the best. I was just like, okay, F it, done.
Well, okay, so I think that actually holds to your inexperience with MMOs, Rob.
Yeah.
Because it had the same system in World of Warcraft where if you hold down a key as you hover over something, it will show a direct comparison to what you have equipped.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. And I have the one thing that I didn't see in Star Wars was much in the way of probably because it's a beta. There wasn't as much hand-holding through the interface. I think that they kind of assumed, and maybe we're making too many assumptions here, but I think that they were thinking that the people on this beta probably had played MMOs before.
Yeah, I didn't realize for an hour that there was no auto attack. I was very confused. I was like, okay, I just clicked on that, dude.
I ran into that same thing, and I played World of Warcraft for years, where it was I would click on it and I expected. And this is a negative thing, and they expect that you know a lot about MMOs. I would right-click an enemy, then mash an ability, wait for the cooldown on that ability, and it took me 3 or 4 enemies into the very beginning of the game to realize, when I right-click on them, I'm attacking once, but I'm not attacking again.
Yeah.
And they never explain that. And the MMO standard is right-click on an enemy, enter combat, start auto-attack.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting point. If you're going to copy or at least model your system off of, the standard that is World of Warcraft now, why would you leave out something like auto attack? That I can't figure out. But it's still beta. Who knows?
I think that they're trying to go after a more visceral system, but the problem is that doesn't really work when your attacks are swing a lightsaber. It's possible. Works have more abilities. And you have different cooldowns that are running. But when my cooldowns where I can pick something up off the ground and throw it, or I have 2 lightsaber attacks, I really just wanted to set one thing to auto attack until I told it to stop.
Yeah. There was no playing as the smuggler, and I really wish I had gone back and played as a Jedi, and this kind of plays into something John and I talked about over the phone was, I asked the question of, is anyone going to want to play as a Jedi? And John said, well, the Jedis kind of act as either a healer or a tank, and then your damage dealers are kind of your smuggler class. So I think there is a place for each class, and I'm really happy about that, because when I first heard that the Old Republic was coming out, I was like, okay, everybody and their mother is going to want to play as a Jedi or a Sith. What do you do to make the other classes impressive? I think BioWare has done a good job of that. The smuggler is supposed to be your damage dealing class. However, sitting there and pressing the same multi-shot skill over and over, there's no visceral quality. It's just boring. The enemies don't react. It's just it's literally Civil War time or American Revolution. I'm standing on one end of the battlefield, they're standing on the other. We're just going to unload on each other. And the game has this really finicky cover mechanic for the smuggler class, which is just – I don't understand it. In the 3 or 4 hours that I played, I could not get it to consistently work. And I don't know if that's bugginess from the beta, but I really didn't like – and it's trying to add a visceral quality to a game that is Microsoft Excel.
Yeah. One thing that I want to make note of, and Rob, your inexperience for MMO shows a little bit here, is the arguments that you have of, well, it's really simplistic. That is pretty standard across the board in every MMO, because for the first 20 levels or whatever, you're stupid Mick. I have no abilities. That was a really bad.
Stupid Mick, I have no abilities.
Yes,
I'm kind of insulted over here right now. No, but John's 100% right that it's my lack of experience with the genre, and I think that speaks to the bigger question about World of Warcraft. Is this going to appeal World of Warcraft, Knights of the Old Republic? Damn it, I'm going to get it. See, it's hard. I think this speaks to the bigger question about the Old Republic. Is this a game that is going to attract MMO players, or is this a game that's going to attract everyone? For me, as a non-MMO player, I was not interested. That could just be me. I could be an outlying case, but I don't think that this is the type of game that's going to cross over.
I don't think it is. I don't know that it will either, but let me say this about it. I think that it could be that the timing here is really, really good for BioWare and EA. Because even though World of Warcraft coming out with a new expansion, you're getting Diablo 3 free if you buy a year subscription, et cetera, et cetera. But the level cap in that game had to be raised to 90 at this point, all right, to make it, to make people still want to come back in and still be able to level up. If you can play another game that's like World of Warcraft and actually start at level 1 and be the biggest badass in the galaxy, and you don't have to relearn anything, and you already like Star Wars, honestly, that's going to be, I would imagine a pretty good chunk of folks that play World of Warcraft might be in that state. Yeah. I think they might be able to pull some folks away from World of Warcraft. That it's not that they don't like World of Warcraft. They're just they've been playing it for years and they want to try something new. Well, here it is. And it plays exactly the same way that you're familiar with.
And what's interesting is I find that the concept of MMO player versus non-MMO player interesting. It's been almost 7 years now since World of Warcraft came out, and you looked at a market that was incredibly hardcore before then. You had a game like EverQuest,
Absolutely.
which had less than 1 million subscribers and was considered to be incredibly successful. I think that having this game, and I have no doubt that the Old Republic will pull 1 million subscribers and probably 3 million in regards to game sales in its first 3 months. And I have a feeling that it will keep a subscriber base that's at least 1 million. I don't know how big it will grow, but I have a feeling it will keep 1 million subscriber base. And you know what? 1 million subscriber base is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. That'll make back your 100 million that you've spent on it pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, even 3 million in box sales will make half of that back. And it's and there was still, I know that this kind of fell off, but there were initially rumors of microtransactions in the game, but I think that fell off in favor of the subscription model. But we'll see if it ever reappears.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has the BioWare feel. It has the BioWare production values. I mean, I was really struck by how great everything sounded. Of course, it's got a kick-ass opening cinematic. I mean, George Lucas just needs to let these guys make the next Star Wars trilogy. Just let those guys make it because they're telling better stories than George is. But it's got that BioWare feel. It's just that I was expecting. I asked John when we first found out we were going to be in the beta. I asked John because I had never really seen anything for the game. I was like, wow, the infiltrator class for the Sith, he's firing a sniper rifle and whatnot. That's kind of cool. Am I going to do that in the game? And John's like, no, you're going to be right-clicking on people. I was like, right-clicking on people through a scope, right? And he's like, no, none of that.
No, unfortunately not.
And that's just, again, I don't think it says anything about the quality of the game. It just says that me as a non-MMO player, not really interested. It's not my cup of tea.
And it does get better. Those early levels are tough.
I was saying the same thing to John about Dark Souls. You just got to get through those opening skeletons, and it gets better.
Yeah, right. I think I mentioned this in the preview. There were moments where when it's all coming together that you're like, this is the coolest Star Wars game that anybody's ever made. I mean, there's moments when I was up against 3 Flesh Raiders or what have you, and I levitate one with the force, push the other one off a cliff with the second, and then hurl a boulder at the third. And and you're thinking to yourself, holy cow, that was awesome. I mean, that is, how many times as a kid have you wanted to do that? But then after that, they rush you, and all I can do is wait for my lightsaber swing to recharge.
Yeah.
And then you have to go find pants.
It's just, you're just not quite there. The moments that are great, I mean, they sing to you. The moments that aren't, you are made the worse because of the moments that do sing, I think. So, we'll see what happens.
Can I ask a dick question?
When has us telling you yes or no ever stopped you?
Good point. Good point. Are we happy that this is what we have at a BioWare when it comes to Star Wars, or would we have rather had a single player follow up to Knights of the Old Republic?
I don't even think that's a worthwhile question.
You don't think? Okay, because remember, I never played Knights of the Old Republic. I have it on my computer, and I tried to play it, and it was very archaic, and I really struggled with it. But I was kind of hoping that the next game would be, this sequel to a game series that everyone's talked about.
I would like to see them revisit Knights of the Old Republic as a single-player game. But I think that it's, I think maybe I misunderstood your question because we have a difference in development resources here. This was not developed at at BioWare Edmonton. This was developed in BioWare Austin, which was a studio specifically created to make an MMORPG.
Yeah.
If we were to have a Knights of the Old Republic 3 or whatever, it would have to come out of, if BioWare did it, BioWare Edmonton, because Knights of the Old Republic is a LucasArts franchise. It's not a BioWare franchise.
Yeah.
And, you have Knights of the Old Republic 2 that was made by Obsidian.
Yeah, I just, I think when I first heard that they were making this, I think I was a little upset just because I wanted to play, I wanted to play an update to this game that everybody had been raving about when I didn't have an Xbox. So, it's not what I'm looking for, but I think that if you're an MMO player, if you like World of Warcraft, this is World of Warcraft with Twi'leks instead of orcs.
Oh, Twi'leks! It's one thing that really, really bothers me.
Here we go.
No. This is a totally absurd rant. But okay, so I played a Twi'lek Jedi, and I had my training saber, and every time I would put it away, it would go directly through one of my character's head tails. If one of your 4 races is going to be a race that has giant head tails, you need to figure out those clipping issues. I'm sorry, but that has to happen.
Can I be the little thing that's like Jabba the Hutt's pet? I wanted to be one of those as a Jedi.
Look, there's definitely still a few clipping issues. I fell through an elevator and died at one point, So
that's going to happen in any MMO. I don't know how much times I fell through the world in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I just
to the center of the earth.
I loved, walking around, and they do a really good job of making it feel like a battlefield for the opening smuggler area, but then you walk up to like a group of separatists that don't notice you right away because you haven't pulled aggro on them, and they're just kind of like sitting at the base drinking coffee, and then you round a corner and they just suddenly their guns just pop up and they just start attacking you. It just
it takes a little bit of a suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, mechanically the game is very much an MMO, but stylistically and narrative structurally, it is a BioWare game.
Oh, here is something cool that I haven't seen before in a BioWare game. And this might have been something that they adjusted very late because I just never noticed it before the day after I posted the preview. The dialogue options, I don't know if they're randomized or if they're intentionally trying to, mess with your expectations. But there are definitely some dialogue options where they've got the top option actually is the dark side answer, and the bottom option is the light side answer. And then in another conversation, it was mixed up again. I'm wondering if they added something that randomized it, and that would, I think, would be a really cool mechanic I'd like to see in some of the other BioWare games.
That's actually very interesting because that was one of the things that I recalled is that one was the light side option, 2 was the neutral option, 3 was the dark side option.
Absolutely, and that was the that was when I wrote the preview. That was the way I saw all the dialogue options, and it played out that way. But the day after I posted that, I played for one more night, and I actually played on the the other side, just because I knew we couldn't even talk about it. But the dialogue options it looked like they had been randomized, like complete, and they were different, every time. every time he had a conversation with somebody.
Well, I hope so because I got tired of Mass Effect 2 just looking for like the red option. You know what I mean? Like at that point, it wasn't role playing anymore. It was just, okay, I'm a dick. I want to maximize my dick points, so I'm going to look for the dick response.
Who doesn't want to maximize their dick points?
It's true. But so I think making you actually role play, and there are actually moments where your response is timed in Old Republic. Like you have to give the response quickly, so you kind of have to sit there and read through the dialogue options.
That was one of the things that I really liked about Alpha Protocol.
Yeah,
yes.
You think quick.
It was that it's like, okay, we're going to give you 3 seconds to choose your dialogue option while they're currently speaking, and we're just going to give you little clips. It's like, how do you want to react attitude-wise? And I don't think that, well, I mean, there's always a thing in MMOs where you have to assume that the player has some kind of lag. And so I don't know how well that would work here, but I like that, and I wish that more games would do something like that.
Yeah, I liked it in Heavy Rain, too. I really did. I liked it how Heavy Rain would actually blur the options, like you were trying to concentrate.
Wait, okay.
I actually
Zach, when you edit this, I need for you to splice that together so it's Rob saying, I really liked Heavy Rain.
And just ending it like that?
Yeah.
Please, God, no. I still despise that game, but it did some things pretty well. How did Madison get to the bottom of that burning house?
Quiet.
No, how did she get to the bottom? There was a giant explosion. She was in a refrigerator, and then suddenly she's on the bottom street.
No, the fridge flies out the window.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. It doesn't. She's just there.
The fridge flies out the window, dude.
I'm sorry. I need to calm down. But yeah, so I think we're gonna, there's going to be other phases to the Old Republic beta. I don't know if I'm going to be joining in, just because with me it was kind of like going to the dentist. And
I'm really interested to see how the game fleshes out. I didn't even get to with our NDA, it was you can talk to everything up to this point. I didn't even get up to that point because of the issues that I was having with my computer. I want to get up to that point, and I want to get further because it seems like this game probably has really cool stuff that happens. We just haven't seen it yet.
And when you get off-world, when you get off that starting planet, I mean, the scope of the thing starts to really become clear. And it's...
Don't say anymore.
Yeah.
I can't say anymore.
It's massive. It's definitely the massive part of the massively multiplayer online game.
There's part of me that really wants to try it again, but I know that my first couple hours with the game were it was very troubling for me. Like, I was not enjoying it. I was fighting to stay awake. And if you guys point out things maybe in the next couple of levels, in the next couple of hours that might interest me, then maybe I would jump into it. But I think, for right now, it's just another MMO that I'm probably not going to play.
I think it's about options, right? I mean, like, if you're a type of person, and Rob, clearly you are, if Demon Souls is your type of game, strategizing is your type of game, and early on in this game, and certainly other MMOs, your breadth of options is very small.
Yeah.
And it stays that way for the first several hours. And then it starts to open up, and it starts to open up, and you do have more options. The question is, is it worth hanging in?
Yeah. What I think would be interesting for Rob to see is, a boss fight, even in a 5-man dungeon or a 4-man dungeon, I suppose, in the Old Republic, where you actually have to have some kind of strategy to win.
Or you just get annihilated. Yes, absolutely.
You guys find it interesting that up until that point, we probably could have been talking about Final Fantasy 13 for how.
Well, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's like it starts. We could have been talking about Final Fantasy 13, where it was like it starts off kind of holding your hand, limited options, and then it's supposed to get good, but it's just. I think it's the investment.
Hours and hours to get there. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, finding, we're obviously in the first portion of the show, we're going to talk about Dark Souls, and I we're going to talk about Dark Souls.
I like how when people listen to this, they're going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? Because they're not going to realize that we recorded this before the Dark Souls thing.
You have entered a time warp.
Finding 45 hours over the span of 2 weeks to finish Dark Souls was a challenge. That was really hard for a guy that works, that, I have a job, I have a girlfriend. I try to, spend some time with her, although she didn't really want to spend a lot of time with me when I was playing Dark Souls. But like finding 45 hours to spend on that game, it took me a really long time, and it was really hard. Like I can tell that I wasn't doing my job particularly well during those 2 weeks. But so when you tell me that a game gets good, I'm sitting there going, is the amount of investment that I need to put into this, is this going to...
That is the question.
That comes back to everyone's experience with an MMO and why they're actually playing it. I know that I played in a massive guild alliance on Dark Iron and World of Warcraft, and you know what? The last 2 years that I played that game, I wasn't playing the game because I liked the game and I wanted to play more of the game. I was playing it because I enjoyed playing with the people that I knew well in the game.
Yeah, that's the way it was for me with Left 4 Dead. I had a great community of guys that we played Left 4 Dead like every night. And that just became like our hangout spot. Like, hey, dude, how you doing? Like, meanwhile, zombie jumps on someone, starts tearing out their guts. Like, that's, I think, one aspect of the Old Republic that I was really missing out on. Being at low levels wasn't working. I wasn't getting the MMO of the MMO.
And unfortunately, the three of us never actually got to play together.
Yeah.
My guy wasn't going to be much help. He just sits there and shoots things really fast. He doesn't really do a whole lot else.
But that's what DPS does.
I know, man. My smuggler was just boring. Just like pew 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 pew. Pew.
Like honestly, I played a rogue in World of Warcraft, and that was my main. And even against some boss fights in World of Warcraft, I would literally just mash Sinister Strike over and over and over until I had full combo points.
Yeah, it was kind of like again, it's the Dragon Age argument. Having control of each character in both Dragon Age games and being able to cast that fireball over here and then move my rogue into backstab. I can see. What was that?
No, I'm thinking of the final fight in Dragon Age 2 Legacy and how I still haven't beaten it because the retarded AI is just. So it plays out like a World of Warcraft or an MMO boss fight in that, it's okay, you have to move around during this phase, you have to do things, and then I'll move around, and the AI is just like, there, I'm going to stand in the fire.
Yeah, they definitely remember the rock golem fight. Yeah, they did that too. Yeah, that was fun. Having to babysit everyone. No, don't move. And so I think that's one aspect of the MMO that I'm really missing out on. But that's the part of the single player, Dragon Age experience that I love. Was like I felt like I was a battle commander. Meanwhile, if I'm playing with John and Dave, I have to rely on them to do their freaking job, and I don't really rely on other people. So.
Well, and that's one thing that happens no matter what in an MMO, and that's kind of how you gain community. Like the raids that I was in, we trusted people because we knew that they could do their job, and I think that's what happens in most high-end raids where you're playing with the same people every week. When I would do Blackwing Lair or Molten Core, the 40-man raids back when World of Warcraft had 40-man raids, and you had this, 38 of the same people every week, and those other two people were randoms. They were pulled from the somebody can't make it pool.
Yeah, the amount of coordination necessary is really impressive, and you really do need real battle commanders in those types of situations. Some of those you got to be talking to each other the whole time in the fight. We didn't see any of that yet in Star Wars, right. And to get it back to Star Wars for just a second. They introduce early on, right around like at least level 10 or so, they call them heroic quests where you're going to need, either another person or an AI companion to be able to complete the quest. And one of the things I think that's cool about that is theoretically it would have the flexibility there where if you had, 2 or 3 people and one of them dropped out of the middle of the quest or what have you, you could just bring in your AI companion to kind of solve that problem.
Yeah, it's like your own personal friend that you can bring in whenever you want.
Buddy. Exactly.
I like it. So I think, Old Republic, from what I played of it, I'm not interested, but I think it does some things very well. I think it's doing some new things with the MMO, which is awesome. I mean, I love BioWare's storytelling. The people talking back and forth with reverse shot is still kind of fun. It's got great dialogue, great voice acting. I swear to God, if what's-her-face, Naomi Hunter, if she voices one more character, Like, she is the female Nolan North. Like, she's everybody. And now, like, did you see the new Diablo 3 cinematic? Of course she's playing Leah. Like, Jesus God. Like, one good thing, though, Nolan North deserves, like, whatever video game award for his role as the Penguin in Arkham City. He is awesome.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, right there. Nolan North. Awesome. Still hate Uncharted, though. So do we have anything else to say about Old Republic? Or
the last thing I'd say about it is that if you dig BioWare games, storytelling, and, if you're listening to this podcast, I'd say it's likely that you do. It might at least be worth checking out, because the notion of, this never-ending story told by BioWare, I think has some real legs.
And
we'll see what happens.
I'm really interested to see how the game plays out beyond what I saw of it, and that's true for any MMO. I remember when I first started World of Warcraft, I got to level 40 something, and I quit, and I re-rolled on another server, and that was when I really started getting into the game.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I'd say. If you find that you're not really digging on the gameplay or the story early, try another class, because I tried all 4 of the Republic class, and all 4 of the stories are very different, out of the gate. So you might just find something that hooks you, So
did I pick the bad one?
You chose a DPS class, a ranged DPS class. Ranged DPS is while not the easiest class to play, one of the easier classes to play.
It was really freaking boring.
Like, melee DPS is pretty much the only thing that's easier.
Well, but Dave, did I play the boring class? Should I have just been a Jedi?
I thought the Trooper story was pretty interesting, but the Jedi story was, I thought all the stories were pretty good. The Smuggler one I thought was a pretty good story too, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that type of class. But I don't think that your basic experience of waiting to press the number 1 or number 2 key is going to change based on the class you play, at least not for the first, 5 to 10 levels.
Yep.
So that part of it isn't going to change.
I would say my final word on the Old Republic, a lot of people, and I can't speak to this, but a lot of people say that World of Warcraft is a very fun single-player game now. Like, you can still have a lot of fun with the early levels, and you can still progress very quickly up to top-tier raid content. It's very fast to get through that stuff. And they say, World of Warcraft is a great single-player game. I would say if you're going to play Old Republic, I think you need to find friends. I kind of wish I had played with John and Dave, because as a single-player game, it was not very enjoyable. It was very dull, very boring, but I think that if you play it with friends, I could see where, the dynamics of having, the Jedi helping each other could really get cool.
If you have an existing EverQuest, World of Warcraft, EVE Online, RuneScape, whatever, guild, and you have multiple people that are looking to play, I think you're still going to have the same amount of fun that you were having with those people in the other game.
Yeah. So, hats off to BioWare. We got to see how it does. December 20th coming around pretty quickly, and I'm sure we're going to have more previews.
Please tell me we're going to get to play the Empire. I mean, come on.
Yes.
We have to be evil. Maybe that's when I'll like it. That's when I'll like it.
I was going to say.
Really evil.
I'm definitely in on that.
I want to kill younglings. Like, I want the first Sith mission to be like, you just kill a whole bunch of young Padawan.
Look,
I go to a really dark place.
It takes you a while to turn into Anakin Skywalker.
I'm already pretty bitchy. It's not going to take that much longer.
No, I would.
I'm one bad breakup away, dude.
I played some of the Empire side, and I can't say anything.
No.
You're crazy.
Well, I'm hoping that that's the other problem that could happen. I don't know anything about the Empire side, but what if the Empire side is the awesome side? Because everybody gets real adamant about Horde or Alliance in World of Warcraft. What if it turns out that just one side is the kick-ass side?
Absolutely.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Are servers down? We can't play it anymore?
I don't know. Our accounts are not set up like normal beta accounts.
Okay, maybe I need to go back and play. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I think I have to. I have to be on the dark side, guys.
I'm really interested to see how the Empire stuff plays out, and we should be hearing back from them soon, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about that sooner. But I think the important thing is that we're playing this. Our beta access ended like half a week ago. And we're playing this still 2 months from release. That's pretty close to what should be the final product. But you know what? 2 months is a long time in MMO time in regards to development.
Yeah, lot could change.
Things could change, and hopefully some will change for the better.
Here's the question. I think that, Rob, I think it's clear you're probably not that interested at this point, not having played Empire yet. But if it came out tomorrow,
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't be interested in picking it up.
No, it wouldn't be for me. And this isn't me saying it's a bad game. I'm just
sure, of course. And I think I would be interested in picking it up. And I think that's kind of the best thing I can say about it is that I played it, I enjoyed it, and I'm interested in playing some more.
John?
I honestly, and this is interesting for me, I'm still on the fence. Like, I'm glad that I have access to the beta, and we'll have access to further beta when we get around to playing the other side. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've weaned myself off of World of Warcraft, and my World of Warcraft play, as I mentioned earlier, was not because I enjoyed the game.
Yeah, it was the community aspect.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a big part of the MMO. And I haven't played an MMO in, I don't think I've participated in an MMO in at least a few years at this point now. So, the time is ripe to pick that, the pipe back up, as they say. So,
oh my God.
Cocaine's
a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
It is.
One thing that I honestly, when I was playing The Old Republic, one of the things that I thought was, man, I miss Tabula Rasa, which is a really weird thing for me to think, because I didn't play Tabula Rasa for very long. I played it for like 2 months, but I liked a lot of its ideas. And you know what? I find it truly unfortunate. This really has nothing to do with The Old Republic, but I'm going to say it anyway. You had NCSoft that had, NCSoft, which is king of, let's put out this game from Korea and it's going to, have 3 million users. They had 2 absolutely fantastic games on their plate with Tabula Rasa and Auto Assault, games that did different stuff, games that changed what was going on, and nobody wanted to play them.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
So maybe playing it safe was pretty. I mean, it's definitely a calculated move, as Dave started out the whole conversation with. It was a calculated move. They know what works, and so they're going with that. But they're also allowing a changing in terms of the narrative structure. So it isn't just World of Warcraft. And I think that should assuage some fears.
Yeah, we've been calling it World of Warcraft this entire podcast, but I think all of us are speaking strictly about the combat.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes,
not the actual.
Key point.
Yeah, the actual narrative is very BioWare, and I think that's what it's going to use to distinguish itself. Is that enough? I don't know.
The actual narrative is as far away from World of Warcraft as you can get, I'd say. You know? And it's going out of its way to isolate you as the guy or girl, as the case may be. World of Warcraft, it is very obvious that you are one of many, in an ongoing battle, in an ongoing struggle for supremacy.
And I think that they, and those that actually works for World of Warcraft to say, okay, you are an alliance dude, we need your help. There are some quests that pop up that are individualistic, and because they're that much more awkward. Like when they introduced cinematics in Lich King, it was like, why am I getting a cinematic? This is a world that's supposed to be evolving with me, and that, with zones that had I forget the term that was used now because it's been so long. Oh, phasing. Zones that had phasing and changed based on how your quests were going, I don't think made as much sense in World of Warcraft, because I'm supposed to be a part of this big battle. Why are things changing for me but not for others?
Right.
Well, I think we've kind of beaten a dead horse, but we're definitely going to have more Old Republic conversations as new sections come up past NDA. So, look forward to those. And, John, I think you're going to keep playing. Dave, you're going to keep playing. We'll see if anything else about the game intrigues me, but otherwise we'll probably give the beta key to somebody else just because I want to make sure that we get good reporting on it. But with that said, thank you very much for listening to this episode of Random Encounter. Subscribe to us through iTunes, through the RSS feed. If you like Dave, say that you liked him and you want him to come back. So I think you held your own, big guy.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, podcast at rpgfan.com. It's been a couple of weeks since we've gotten an email. I check it. I still check it every now and again.
Oh, that is so depressing. You know what? I'll send you an email just so you.
Well, we've gotten several people to email us now, and Rob, we had one the other week that we had a reader who really wanted you to play Shadow Hearts. So
yeah, and I haven't played it since I started my Dark Souls Insanity, but I was liking it, and I really do. I want to play it. I don't know if I'm going to get a whole lot in before Skyrim takes over my life, but I would like to keep playing it. It's definitely intriguing the living hell out of me. So, and I love the combat system in the game. Like, I absolutely love it. So, yeah, we'll probably have a Shadow Hearts conversation at some point.
Yay.
All right, thank you very much for listening, guys. Talk to y'all later.